Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode on the HighLevel Experience Podcast. Our guest today is the co-founder of HighLevel Pro Tools, one of the most popular and top-rated teams for support, tools, and resources to make high level easy, and also help you scale your SaaS agency. As the only person and team to win all of HighLevel's Level Up Summit Awards, he's a go-to for all things high level. He's also a front row dad to 2 boys, a committed husband of 9 years, and is dedicated to playing the game of business while being famous in his home, proving that success in business doesn't have to come at the expense of family life. In today's episode, he'll be sharing how he sold a white label high-level account for 7 figures, the lessons he's learned, and some powerful advice for anyone just getting started with high level. Please welcome to the show the one and only Matt Deseno from HighLevel Pro Tools.
Thanks for having me. That was a grand intro. I'm sure some of that came from the team, but I like it's fun to hear and think back like, oh man, that is true. But you know, when you're just kind of head down doing it, you hardly have time to look up and kind of recognize what's been happening.
Yeah, it's good to reconcile and like look back, right? You know, I'm a big fan of this rule called 5 Ps. Have you heard of it?
No, 5 Ps. Tell me.
Prior preparation prevents piss poor performance. So for these episodes, way back, I would sometimes do this on a whim. And, I can communicate. I have no issues and, segue into some good conversations. But, I would sometimes just schedule an interview and just jump on and not be ready for it. And I found whilst it's doable, it can be done. I found that if I spend an hour or at least half an hour to like prep, I've got some prompts. I feed, I export your LinkedIn bio and feed it to AI, all that stuff, we all use it, right? And just, come up with some good questions, help me get AI to help me with figure out some good questions and all that. I found that if I do this, and especially if I do this maybe 5 hours before the interview and then do other things, and then before we do the interview again, and maybe have a quick skim read of it again, by the time we jump on the interview, I'm like, this is I'm comfortable. I'm not, anyway. Preparation, right? It's as with anything, right? When you prepare, you can create good shit. And you've been a master at this for a while, creating good shit, and to say it that way, delivering some good value to the community of other high levelers. But I'm curious, what could you share the story behind HighLevel Pro Tools? Like, what inspired you to start this venture? Because I mean, you could have just easily be focusing on SaaS and just do that, right?
It was the team more so than it was me. So even now, I think people don't, it's there's different ways that people run companies, solve problems, even how things evolve and grow. And so I'm kind of most proud of the development of the people that have come alongside us in this journey. It's not obvious to folks that HighLevel Pro Tools is still not how I feed my family. This is still, I haven't had to take $1 out of HighLevel Pro Tools. So the full backstory was we came into HighLevel and the vision was launch SaaS. You mentioned that, that was literally from day one. So we're one of the first 100, I think, agencies in there. I immediately try the idea board. It's not working for me. I'm like, Sean, how can I just pay you as much money as possible? Just build out the stuff that we need. And so that's how we started. Now we had a 8-year run at that point of just being an agency. So we were an agency. We'd evolved from design and development to more of marketing and full stack marketing, even to the point of performance-based deals where, that is kind of the highest risk, highest reward version you can do is pay per result, or whatever that might be. And so we started doing that in 2018. And I actually got kind of drawn out of an affiliate deal. We were from 2012 to 2016, we built a lot of Shopify sites. And so I was accidentally a Shopify affiliate and I was like, this is great. And I thought this is retirement. Oh my gosh, this is gonna be good. Well, as it happens, a lot of companies, they go public and everyone votes, do we want to keep on paying these people for work they did, 8 years ago? And they all voted no. And so 1 month, it was just all of the commissions disappeared. And I was like, what in the world happened? So I was like, oh man, affiliate marketing is a scam. I need to own the brand that I'm recommending, or own the brand that we're sort of affiliating in terms of the software here. So that started us down this path. A year into it, so it's crazy. 2019 was a great year. My wife got pregnant. We want to have kids, so we were due in April of 2020, the end of the month there. And I was just like, I head down, trying to just grow as much as possible, because I really wanted to be a phenomenal present father. And I didn't, I didn't quite have the words, but honestly, I had this limiting belief that if I ever ran out of money, I become the worst version of my father. And so that was like the driving force there. It was like, man, I gotta produce, because it's like the bigger the bear, the faster you run. And that's what it was for me. It was a big bear that I was running from, that I just wanted to, create these big walls of safety around. And so that's what we're doing, gearing up to. And what happens beginning of 2020, COVID hits. And for me, there was a couple things converging there. So it was, my wife went into labor early, this is the first child. I had no concept of this. We thought due date meant like this is the date. Like this is like a delivery date. Like
Yeah.
that's the date you prepare for. It all happened in the same week. Like, we go into the hospital, it's normal. We're in the hospital. He's, premature, so they have to take him to the NICU. He can't breathe on his own and all sort of stuff. But like, noise of COVID started happening outside. And I saw front hand in like the first week of, we're California based, but like how the hospital was run, and they freaked out. They kicked us out of the hospital. They locked him away in the NICU. And I didn't have a concept I was not prepared for the idea of leaving my son, my child, like, I'm geared up to be like a new parent. I had no concept for that. So I'm immediately in like a, very much so, like a fight or flight response. Honestly, I just wept. So like devastating. You feel so broken, but at the same point, you feel like it's like the mama bear adrenaline, like the mom lifts the car off of the kid, kind of a thing, where you're like,
Yeah.
what do I need to do? And I couldn't help him in the hospital. There's nothing I could do there. And so what ended up happening? So at the same time, we did net 30, net 60 deals, which means for the performance deals, we would literally put money in their pocket. And I was like, hey, I give you an invoice and it's due like a month later. So
Mhm.
let's say we'd work, in January. February 1st, we say, what happened in January? And we'd say, this is due March 1st. So there's like, technically, I could have been paying out ad spend on January 2nd, and I'm not getting paid back that, plus, recouping my costs and making a profit there until March 1st, you know, in terms of due dates here. And in the moment when we started doing this, it it I this is 2017, 2018. I was like, no one's gonna bite the hand that feeds them. And it created a great relationship. This is kind of
Mhm.
like, other companies have done a similar thing to create a low risk offer. If you're actually good and you can deliver, you can have advantageous terms there and make a lot of money. And so, but the liability was, crisis hit. We were primarily serving California based businesses, and a lot of them had to be shut down. Like it's like squash the curve, just like literally don't do business, any category. And so they're all in crisis, and they looked at, these bills from 60 days of work, of like money I know I put in their pockets from when the world was still normal, and they stiffed us on these invoices. And
Oh
for
man.
all of our clients, we had them in two dynamics. We had a SaaS brand, and then we had the agency brand. So we kept them independent. The SaaS brand was low ticket. We did $197 a month on a credit card. The high ticket was always like ACH, paid via QuickBooks, kind of like a thing there. And I saw all of these clients, it wasn't malicious, but in their crisis or whatever, like, they stiffed us for tens of thousands of dollars.
I can imagine.
And yeah, and I could see I had their credit card over here on this other brand, and they kept on paying for the software. They didn't know like we owned both brands, because we brought it on how we were bringing on stuff for the years prior. Like, how do we get people onto Shopify? They wanted a website built for ecom, and we said, oh, you should sign up for Shop. Like, that was just like, it was an easy, natural flow for the agency to be like, this is the tool I recommend. You should get it. Like, that's how I can't do my service unless there's a tool there. So anywho, in that space, it was just a dark, dark season. The mantra was, money doesn't disappear, it just shifts. Money doesn't disappear, it just shifts. I My day to day, I was like, I just need to be near my son. And so I worked out a plan where I would come in through the ER at shift change at 6 a.m., because the overnight guard would like change. And I was kind of like, he probably, and the shift change, there's some confusion there. And I'd bring a car seat, my lunch, like a backpack and like a black lunch box, and just be like, my son's in the NICU. And they'd be like, oh yeah, he is. Here, go ahead. But there's like 3 degrees of security well, especially in this time, but in hospitals in general, of like getting into the hospital. Nowadays, like, anybody can walk into the hospital, but there they had like the checkpoints and COVID. Then there's getting into the baby mama, like the labor and delivery, because they don't want kids being stolen, right? So there's like a secondary checkpoint where you got to call in. They're like, oh yeah, you do have a kid. And the third level is the NICU, the neonatal ICU zone. That's the room I wasn't allowed into, which was actually where my son was. But I could get in the first two, and it was a weird ghost. It was a weird thing. Nobody was there because no elective procedures were happening. They were converting these empty. I remember the room, they did this big room where we like learned how to change diapers. We did like one of those like pre-parent classes. They had converted into, it looked like something out of the movies like Contagion, like the white plastic separated gurney beds. Like they were just they were constructing extra beds because they were preparing for like the apocalypse. And I would go into the waiting room next to the NICU. And I remember there was this puzzle. There was this unfinished puzzle someone was clearly doing with it. Like it was just there, this weird puzzle of a landscape, not fully finished. And I'd be by myself and I would just like spend 12 hours a day talking to clients who were rejecting, invoices, and talking to team and saying like, just that thing, like money doesn't disappear, it shifts. We're going to find a way. And so it was out of that where the team, we had a small team, like we were like less than 10 people, maybe 12 with contractors, like 8 to 12, depending on how you define the team there. And it was someone's idea. They're like, well, we're still running, like we're still doing support on like the clients, who sift our invoices are still actually using the software. And man, it just clicked. I was like, oh my gosh, it's the bundle of tiny sticks. It held steady. We had like almost no churn on the like low ticket subscription. And I had like I don't even know how to quantify all of the like tens of thousands of dollars of stiffed invoices on the like the high ticket retainer services side of it. And so the idea was born of like, I bet you there's other people in other industries who are doing the same thing that we're doing. Like they have this thing, I think at the point, it was 30-ish thousand in MRR that was kind of doing there. And I was like, I think there might be other folks who are either doing this or should be doing this. Cause this is like, I'm seeing these businesses are shut down. They're still running this. They didn't cancel their like CRM. They're not like, I'll just abandon my list. And so this was like the utility that they're like, I'm going to keep this going. Even if it's in crisis, they're like, I believe someday I'm going to need this foundational thing, which makes sense. You don't like cancel your electrical bill even when times get tough. Like you cut out the essentials, you cut out the non-essentials, you keep the essentials.
Yeah,
so
I get you.
yeah, so that was the birth of HL Pro Tools. We just said like, well, we've got excess capacity here on the team. And so, and honestly, we kind of missed the original vision was like, we had built out some things for ourselves. So just like little things to make it done. Like there was no SaaS mode. So we had done things to make it functionally work. And we're like, hey, if other people run into these problems, we're trying to do that. So the original vision, we thought it was just going to be more like tools. Like, hey, here's like our suite of tools. And we put in there like, hey, we'll also run your support. It was like, that was our bonus. It was like, hey, we'll also run your support because we figured when you start to run a team, you realize there's team utilization. And I could look and see, and it's like, I'm paying for them to work 8 hours a day. And I'm like, there's realistically like 4 hours worth of work. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's just like what you do.
Yeah. This brings memories. I've had VAs, and then you look at the work they do, and like the work that you've done previously for that many hours, and now they're stretching it out. You're like, man.
Yeah. So it's just underutilization is a natural thing that happens. You start to build up a team, and it's okay because you're usually like flexing. You're like, you want to have some space where you can grow. You're not always like, I got a new deal now, I got to hire kind of a thing. So it was a natural occurrence. But I was like, oh, I'll just make this a bonus. Like we've got excess capacity. I didn't know how many people would kind of go for it. And so that was the initial launch of HL Pro Tools in summer of 2020.
Nice. Wow, man. What a story. I mean, I'm a dad as well. I have one child, son. He's turning 4, so he's born 2020 as well, but in November. And I can only begin to imagine what must have felt like not being able to, I mean, in the first place, not even being able to go in the building, but then let you in later on. But still, like, like we had a completely different journey. Like they called us and like, okay, you guys can pack your luggage and come into the hospital. It was like checking in a hotel. It was during COVID too, but it was like in a small town in Australia, and it was like we had our own room, we had everything, and it was public, right? I was like, wow. So we had completely opposite the experience. We were in the room the day before the labor, then 2 more days after the labor, we kept being in the room. They let me be in the room, like I was just lying next to my wife, and I was at the same time I was like looking at the elections was happening back then,
Sure.
and so much going on. And then I was just feeding my son with this little syringe, like the mother milk, like because he was so tiny, right?
The colostrum. Yep.
And I do remember that like something just like changed inside me. Like up until that point, I was, I was like hustle and like do my own thing. And like, I've been, in business since 2010, but like you do your own thing and you're not responsible for anyone else. Like, yeah, like me and my wife, like we were, partners, but you don't have the little human being that you like, and something just clicks and like something shifts, and then, so that was the moment. And like I found out about HighLevel as well, like around that time. I'm like, I'm going to go all in on this.
That's awesome.
So guys, like, and here's a caveat to that. Like I made the decision. I do not want to, so my background is fitness, right? I used to manage gyms and whatnot. I had a big gym in Sydney, had employees and all that big stuff, and it was just a nightmare. I said, I never want to have that again. I don't want to be bound to a physical location. I want to be able to run a business from anywhere. We're both from Czech Republic, so I want to be able to go back home and whenever we want to and open a laptop and continue. And we did that 2.5 years ago. I started going in HighLevel, started doing fulfillment, then I started in the SaaS thing. And then it's like, well, we've got this. Man, we also just happened to got citizenship approved from Australia. So like, all right, we're sorted. Let's go. Pack the luggages. Let's close the laptop and see if it works. Let's fly over 20 hours to Europe, open the laptop and see if the business continues. Not only it continued, for the last 2.5 years I've been here, it tripled. It just freaking amazing. So
That's awesome.
So the opportunities there, guys. Like if you're listening and if you stumble upon this podcast and if you're new to HighLevel and you're starting to figure it out and you haven't really made any dime yet, it is 100% possible. You just got to put in the work. There's no magic bullet. But let's talk about some important tips. What would you say? Like now, you've been at this journey for a while. You also help all these other SaaS agencies. You also help some big names. I want to get to that too. Tony Robbins and all those. I want to dive into that a little bit. But knowing what you know now, what would you say to somebody that is considering to open up their own like HighLevel account? Maybe they haven't even run an agency before, and they kind of, there's so many different people coming in, right? Some seasoned agency owners want to transform into SaaS, but you also have the wannabe, entrepreneurs. They jump in on the SaaS, become billionaire dream.
I know we're all wannabes once. Like you got to start somewhere. I think here's a helpful part of my journey and I feel like our journey now with the team is like you mentioned, HL Portals is what I'm mostly known for in this space because the other like our customers, our avatars, they're not agency owners. We were not serving agency owners. That's some of the most valuable problems are not actually solving it for agency owners. It's not bad, but for me it was like just, continue to deliver value as much as possible. That's just it. It's like continue to deliver value as much as possible. If you like solve for others what you want for yourself, I've heard this said there too. And like the ultimate form of learning is teaching. Like if you want to really recall it, remember it, have quick utilization of that knowledge, like where it actually changes your behavior, go through the task of trying to teach and replicate that understanding to somebody else. And so that's what it's been for me. But in that same year where there was money doesn't disappear, just shifts, the thought was, are there any other opportunities to sell our sawdust? And so the concept here is there are great, wood mills, and they process, they're making planks of wood. And at the end of the day, they have tons of like just sawdust, literally, leftover sawdust, which was otherwise garbage. And they realized like, hey, we could combine this sawdust together with like resin and actually make a whole nother line of products. And this is where you get like compressed wood. And this is like a lot of like IKEA furniture is this stuff that's made out of someone recognizing we had this waste, this byproduct. Like we were solving a problem for ourselves, which is like processing big, logs into usable planks so we could build. And we had this leftover of just like the sawdust, and it turned into an incredibly huge industry. And part of the magic there is you're like, oh man, it was in a sense a leftover. If you can make money from your leftover, it's kind of a magical feeling, because you keep on solving the problem. Sometimes the problems that you're solving, other folks or just like other people in general, that problem is so big to solve. There's a lot of barrier to entry there to just solve that problem. And so if you're selling the sawdust, you're not going to get a lot of sawdust competitors because they're like, first you have to solve the bigger problem, if that makes sense. So in the beginning, it was like, what was the problem that we were solving? Like we were creating solutions for the end business. And for us, it was performance-based marketing agency. That's what we were doing. So we had to have retainers and deal contracts that were, average around $10,000 a month. that motivated us to solve some of these problems. Like if I was not getting paid tens of thousands of dollars per client that we're bringing on, you'd be like, this isn't even a worthwhile problem to solve. And so another version of this was we were hiring appointment setters, basically. Like, and I was largely, it was like college students, and I'm just US based. And so these are some of the contracts you're pulling on, like literally hiring college students to call and text leads, literally call and text leads. Now, you go back in the day with HighLevel, there was campaigns and there was triggers, but there wasn't AI. There was not AI. It was campaigns and triggers. You could like fire an automation. You could kind of have like a sequence of like automated outbound, but to like set an appointment, if someone's like, I'm interested, you're like, you needed a human to like actually just like have the conversation here. And so we were running into capacity issues. How many calls could someone make in a day? How many times could they actually respond to like a positive lead? Sometimes we get these businesses that had big databases. So you're like, oh, this is awesome. I've got tens of thousands of leads, but I might only have capacity for like a human to set 80, things in a day. And so we were just running into these barriers here. And so one of the other things in that zone was Zappy chat. So we went to like Dialogflow, and I was like, can I kind of hack together an integration between HighLevel and Dialogflow so we could literally have, and at the time, this was like Google's most advanced accessible large language model where you could do conversational actions. And so we created conversational appointment booking in HighLevel, honestly, in 2019. And then in 2020, in this place, we're looking at this like, well, we have this thing that we were using on performance side, which was great when you had these big high ticket deals. When those deals are like, kind of dried up, and I was like, maybe there's other people, other industries that could utilize this. And so that was kind of like the birth of Zappy chat there. And that same kind of thing. I was like, oh, this is a problem we just solved for ourselves. And there might be other folks. And we found like, oh man, there were people who were in the real estate industry or the mortgage industry, which in COVID blew up. We were not in that space. And so we were, we didn't have the customer base or anything like that. Other people that were already in that space or already knew, it's like it was kind of like the boom town. And so that was, if money doesn't disappear, it just shifts. But understand, or at least back to if you're starting out there, you have to actually acquire some sort of skill or solve some kind of problem. And so as you're coming in and you're like, HighLevel, awesome opportunity, it is great as a high leverage way to solve problems. Technology does that really beautifully. However, if you don't know what problems to solve or even how to solve the problem inefficiently, there's a very low level chance that you're going to be able to solve the problem efficiently. Like most great innovations that we love, like they came out of that. It's like first the person understood for someone else or for themselves, this is a problem. Then they found a way to solve it inefficiently. Then they found a way to solve it efficiently, and then they could deliver that solution to others. This is the basis for most Kickstarters. That's what they do, right? I saw a problem. I had a problem. I prototyped something that like, oh, this is kind of cool. It's possible. It made my life easier. Maybe if I get to like the efficient version, and now we're saying like you can buy in to the efficient version of this. That's where I see the tripping point for folks is they want to skip the part of like know the problem, solve the problem inefficiently.
They want to go straight to scale.
They want to go straight to scale. And I'm like, if you don't understand the problem, you don't know how to solve it inefficiently, the chances that your scalable solution is going to be desirable is very low. And there are, degrees of this, which you can get to. I would say don't overcomplicate your solution. I think you can be very simple in the solution. It doesn't have to be over engineered or anything. It doesn't have to be.
Oh man, but how tempting it is. I mean, since 4 years ago to where it is now, and how many amazing features that are there now. It's tempting. It's tempting. It's like really tempting.
It is tempting. It is. I'll be honest, a little bit of a trap. In like you don't see a lot of big, depending on what your goal is. But if you're looking for freedom, financially, emotionally, spiritually, in your time and your calendar, most of the folks that have experienced that did not run off in 10 different directions. And so I think this is called the encouragement there too, is I would actually just deeply understand a person and their problem, focus single-mindedly on solving that problem as simply as possible. And then in the simplicity of your solution, when you make that efficient, the beauty of the simplicity is that you can actually scale it. And there's just such an unfair advantage to doing the boring work time and time and time again. And this is interesting because in this space, you can feel like this is a little bit of a small echo chamber, but people would be surprised they'd probably be surprised at the level of impact we've had because I I've found a way to keep my entrepreneurial distractions in like a container and let the business do
Wow.
the boring work that like it just needs to do. And I mean, let this just be an encouragement, but like, it is absolutely possible.
What was your strategy though? Like, how did you manage to put that in a box? Because it's, you know what I mean? Like,
So I call it like what I'll do is sort of mad scientist, assign myself to stuff right now. So I would say half of the most popular things that we have going on, this is crazy to think about, but like, well, maybe we'll go with one third. One third of the things that people are like, their minds are blown, they love, we actually don't even market that we have in HL Pro Tools because I spend most of my time off in, I call it like mad scientist zone. I'm just constantly building and I'm not building to market. I am building for me. And so I find things and problems that I think would be interesting problems to solve or interesting things that I think could be done better. And I just spend my time building, building, building in that zone. Do not let it become a new business. I do not let it become a new core business. I do not let it become a distraction. It just becomes hidden bonuses. And this is like a clever way to do business. But if you can predictably over deliver, like that is such a gift. And how do you predictably over deliver? You have to have something that you're known for. You just deliver that steady and steadfast. And then if you have that entrepreneurial itch, you let that only be bonuses that you're not allowed to market. You're not allowed to create pressure or demand for. It is only an over delivery. There's like hotel chains do this, and it's like, oh, they always make cookies. They always have the cookies there, and people love the cookies right at the front there. But they don't market that because if they said like, stay at our hotel, you get a cookie, like then everyone would start to expect it. Then they'd be like, oh, this isn't the best cookie I've ever had. Like it would be better if you had crumble cookie, whatever it is. And so if you can do that where the thing that you're known for runs steadily without you and you focus entirely on just over delivering, it's such an unfair advantage there. And I think like, big brands, Google does this. Be like, what do people know Google for or love? You like might be like, know for search. I enjoy it for YouTube. I don't even think about paying Google because it's YouTube, but then like maybe like Gmail is a core thing. But think about that. Like, let's go Google Apps, the suite. For most businesses, that's email. That's the core thing they do. You get access to like 1,000 other applications, right? Beautifully, fully robust. Like it replaces all of like Microsoft Office at this point in terms of like a suite there. And most folks are thinking, this is my email. And you're like, there's all these other things that are just
yeah.
like an over delivery. I doubt many people are signing up for, I forget it's called Google Workspace now. I doubt they're signing up for Google Workspace because of like slides. However, that's a fully functioning, very robust tool that is great and helpful for the business, which not that long ago, people would literally buy a license to PowerPoint alone. Just PowerPoint alone was a standalone product. And now it's like a hidden bonus. I mean, you can go deeper than that when you get into Google Workspaces, but they did that. Google had the practice of, because they had driven folks that kind of had an itch. I think it was 25% of their time had to be allocated towards like innovation, like creating just fun projects. And I believe Gmail itself was born out of that. So originally they were just search engine. And then Gmail, this entire thing that has now evolved into Google Workspace, this whole product line was actually somebody's 25% of their work week playing on a fun thing, just trying to be a mad scientist. So that's what I do for myself. I think content's a good output here too, like finding different ways to, stretch yourself from a communication standpoint. Being a great communicator is a dangerous skill to have.
Mhm.
Um,
I gotta say, I mean, your emails are pretty top notch. Like, I think it was an
like,
email. It was an email in July that you put out, and it was like so basic, but I can't remember what it was. It was an invite for one of your webinars, but I bookmarked it. It was really nice. But as a reason, the one thing that I've really liked, and I haven't seen that others doing it that way, is like the over deliver on the like lead magnet. It was your birthday sequence. It was a 10.
yeah.
Was it 20 or 10 of those 20 days
Yeah,
or something like that?
I called it SaaStember. So
Yeah.
the countdown for my birthday in SaaStember. And I think what blew people's minds is there was no, at the end, it wasn't like, here's a pitch, here's an offer. That was it. It was just, how can I give as much free stuff as possible? Now, I'll say that's a privileged position to be in. Fundamentally, you need to find a way to like deliver value and capture some of that value. Like this is, years into this where now I'm like, oh man, it's a awesome spot to be in. But
I think you sandwiched it really well. Like I think on a day 3 or 4, you sandwiched in one of your like the videos, the branded videos. There was an offer, and then you had something else. But it was a lot of value, and then cleverly like sprinkle with some like offers, but
You're
wasn't
right. You're
straight up.
right.
Yeah.
I do think, yeah, you're right. One of those. Well, and I literally pulled a piece of the product out. So like, I challenge myself constantly anytime I'm doing the series. Is like, how can I give away something like I've never given away before? And you're right. There was a piece where we have one of our animated videos where I was like, oh, well, there's whatever, 18 of these. I'm just going to give away one. And I did let folks know, hey, if you want the other 17, get it. But it's an interesting thing. If I would like, let's circle up on that. I believe 0 people bought. So
Oh,
I will
really?
say the intention was not like to get a sale. Like I'm not measuring success on here, like get the sale. I will say when you put like, it is what I find and prepare, or what I find and prefer is when you're in the, like, imagine you come to someone's house and they're, whatever they're doing a dinner party. Like, are you going to do dishes at their house? You're like, no, you're kind of in a zone where the expectation is like they're serving me. You let yourself be served, which is totally fine and totally appropriate. Even though you could just walk yourself back to the kitchen and start doing dishes, you're not trying to be rude. Whereas maybe if you're at your mom's house or something like that, you're like, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna help out. I'm just in sort of a different mindset there.
Right.
So yeah, there's definitely, yeah, that was a good recollection. And I think I did have like a link to if you want it, but I believe 0 people purchased, which was fine. Like that in my mind, that wasn't the intention. It wasn't trying to be like a crafty thing. It's just like I actually get more questions about it. And so I try to like preempt the questions like, hey, you're gonna get this because I don't, I
So what was the motive there? Sorry to jump in. What was the motive then? Is it because you just enjoy teaching? I know you back like you were a professor at Pepperdine University and like you've been teaching
yeah.
and stuff like that. So what your main motive was, like, do you just enjoy giving? I do enjoy giving value, or was it more of a that and building a touch point, like a brand affinity to maybe something later
There,
down the track? Or
there's definitely like brand affinity is important. Here's here's a painful lesson I've had to learn. And this is a lot of businesses or business owners won't push back. They won't push through like the growth opportunities here. What have I heard? It's like entrepreneurship is just like a self-development, like it's like a self-development tool, like disguised like as capitalism. And so what I mean by that is like one thing I've heard, it says like your business only grows as much as you do.
Mhm.
There is such a challenge there of just personal growth. Pick a category, whatever it is. There's very few tools that are so effective and just potent at challenging yourself to personal growth as like the entrepreneurship world and the business world. And at this point, we're almost 200 team members. There's a lot. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot of dynamic. And I mean, there's people, you could have business with 1,000, 10,000 people. So it's like to some, it's a very small thing. To me, the biggest we've ever had something like this. And so at every level, you're constantly challenged. You know this. Parenthood is very similar, where it's like you got a 4-year-old. This is the first time you've had a 4-year-old. You're like, I'm learning parenting a 4-year-old. I also have a 4-year-old in the moment right now. Like I very rarely get to look back and be like, oh, cruise control. Like even if you feel like you kind of get to know the
They're
thing,
all
like the business, or
because they're evolving as well. Like
they're evolving and changing all the time. So I'm like, here I am. I'm like, I've never had to run a business that had 200 team members, and or in this dynamic, in this economy, in this customer base, we have. Oh gosh, this is. I should be better about this, knowing the exact count, but it's somewhere between 4 to 5,000 subscribers, and you're like, this is insane in the amount of folks that on 2 sides. Hopefully, I get to make their days better. Ideally, that's why. Like,
is that agencies or
no, that's not just agencies right now. So I'd say right now we're about half agency, half like direct businesses, like
right?
just regular business stuff. And hopefully I'm making their day better. Like that's why I set out to do the business, especially at this point. Like I've been fortunate. I mean, a hack is just diversification, but I took a lot of the money that I made in 2020, 21 in that crisis. We found a way to deliver value, and it was not like it's still not HL Pro Tools. We just found other ways to keep on delivering value. And I bought a lot of single family real estate. I was just like, I had this mind. It's like, I saw the digital volatility of like COVID. And I was like, I want to change this so that my life is funded in kind of like a less fragile. Anti-fragile was the word that I wanted, is like anti-fragile. I was like, okay, in a worst case scenario, like I could sell the assets. So I went like debt free, just cash, buying out single family homes in states that I've never visited before to become just like landlord. Just like there's landlord Matt, and it's like those mailbox money, I don't manage it. I don't see it. I've never talked to the tenant. I've never even been to the state or seen the houses, and that funds my life, which is a fun place to be in where you're like,
Mhm.
I truly, you could be like, I'm just gonna go to hang out on a beach. I live very close to the beach. And so, but now, like, if you enjoy the game, you're like, I'm still in it to do this. But so ultimately, for the businesses existing, you're like, I want them to solve the problem. Like, the only thing I could get out of this is a little bit of reputation where people will be like, solves problems. Like, he's a good dude. Maybe a little bit of like a status boost where you're like, I get to have conversations with people that like I otherwise would not have been able to have conversations with because of the problems that I solve for them or people that they know and stuff like that. And so in that space, you're like, I want to solve the problems. Does that happen 100% of the time, especially in a people driven business? No. This is why I love software. Software is so much more predictable. And the software brands are like, we solve the problem. And you're like, it actually is 99% of the time. You still get like, maybe I'll say 5% of the time where there's user error. Like, even if you're like, the software works, the people using the software don't work. But when it's people to people, my goodness, it is one of the biggest challenges I've ever faced in my life of like, how do I actually level up the people around me? Like, that's the game that I'm playing. Now, that's once again a challenge to yourself of like, pick whatever the area is. You ask yourself, like, what am I not doing that I know I should be? Man, that's a hits you kind of question. Just think, what am I not doing today that I know I should be? And now I'm like, gosh darn it, I ask myself that question and I have to like go as quickly as possible to do it. Because I know on the other side of doing the thing that I think like that's the kind of people that I want to cultivate. And so we have a phrase with us, HL Pros, elite elevates. Elite elevates. If you are being elite, you elevate the people around you. And that's the challenge. Like, we want to be people who elevate the people around us. But so all to say, it's a privilege, it's fun. Getting back to like, why do I do free stuff? Some
Mhm.
ways I feel the judgment of every person on my team who's made a mistake. And what do I mean by the judgment there? I feel the disappointment. People have bad days, people make mistakes, people are not as thoughtful or as thorough or as elite as I can hold myself to in that standard. And so what ends up happening is someone came into our ecosystem, they trusted us to solve this problem for us, and I'm doing my absolute darndest to create a solution built on fragile, humans, and a human misses the mark. And that wears on me because I think, man, if I somehow made this person's day worse, in that moment, you feel like, I wish I would have not even, like, they don't even realize, like, this doesn't serve me. Like, this doesn't, my family's not like, I, I didn't even want to take their money. In a sense, it's like that money goes to like solving a problem for the team. Like, it creates a space where other people can be elevated. And so I've loved that. Like, luckily it's the exception, not the norm, but I
Yep.
feel the weight on there. So I feel the challenge, and sometimes it's just my personality. It's like, I want to throw it on my own back of like, for all the folks that my lack of skill in creating an elite team, like, that's been a learning process. How do you actually create a elite? My lack of knowledge, skill, and understanding there, like, I genuinely feel like just saying, like, I am so sorry. Like, I'm trying my best and I work at it every single day. But, like, to be honest, we're not a 20-year-old company with like I don't know, like a track record of perfectly executing, or just even not perfectly executing. So we get better every every revolution, every cycle. It's like, oh, it's a 1% better improvement there. But I understand if you're like, man, we've got 80% of the team is elite. The other 13, if you have to interact with those folks, you're like, what a stinking miss. This is a waste of my time and money. And I, feel all that disappointment. So anywho, that's another factor of like, why do I push myself to try and deliver as much value as possible? Because I feel the weight of other things that I have less control over. And I'm still committed to like wanting people to feel like a net positive. It's like every relationship where you're like, it's like your spouse. You're like, man, they're so awesome in these areas. Sometimes they do these things that are like not the best, but you're like net, you're like, but I love having them around. So it's good. It's like feels like a positive thing.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that,
I guess there's
you know,
also like a balance finding out like at what point you like let go and you're not too like rigid in like the leadership or the management of the company because like you've got your own set experiences where you've run it yourself and you've got high standards and now you've got these people and they're making mistakes and at what point do you like decide like I got to manage this. I got to deal with this because this is terrible. Or, no, it's okay. I'm gonna be easy on them because that's just like, it's fine. They, I mean, depends on the intent as well, right?
I'll be yeah, this is lesson I'm learning. What did I do? We'll talk about mistakes I made. I think about it was 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. I've always been very open-handed in the business. This has been super fortunate in the sense of like, I want to give space. The phrase I used to have is like deficits create opportunities. And I'm just very self-aware of the things that I'm not good at. So that's what I mean. It's like if there's a gap, that's an opportunity. So me being bad at something is actually someone else's opportunity to fill in that gap, be great, and like have a crucial role. I don't own 100% of anything. And so part of that is like right now, like we gave ownership and equity to the team. And so I said like, hey, in your excellence, you actually get to like become an owner. Like that's the gap here is because I especially that is like if I'm not even taking money for it, like you should feel a connected experience to the season because right now I'm writing a story where I want to say like for this season, these people trusted me and we were able to accomplish amazing things, solve incredible problems, and then also have them have a material change in their life. And so that's why I'm committed to building something that's sellable, building something that other people would want to buy, even if it's not for me that benefits there. And we can talk about this on the like just functionally what we've gone through and lessons learned on that side of it. But I hired on somebody that had the skill sets of management, but complete ignorance when it came to our, let's just say high level. Like that's actually what it was. And
Mm.
I've come to the knowledge as we say this now is like, I'm really proud of where the team is now. I recognize we're judged by customers who tried us 3 years ago. And I'm like, that's fine. Or 2 years ago, whatever it is. Like you see, when you're improving, like I'm not denying it. Like I'm ashamed of the old version of ourselves too. But one of the critical mistakes I made is I got coaching or someone was like, hey, you just need to build people that are great at building teams. I think
Makes
now I
sense.
think about, yeah, I know. Seems like such great advice. Sometimes you got to go against the grain of advice. What I've since decided is in an emerging market, like high level, it's kind of like being the first hospital. And the first hospitals were probably managed and run by doctors. Like you needed people that knew the craft of what was being done because there weren't global standards. Like now, the people who manage hospitals are not doctors. They actually go to school for hospital administration. And there's all these other standards and regulations there. So they've got the tools and the equipment, like just the equipping, the knowledge to, let's say if a pack of needles are delivered and like this is the wrong needle, they can see because the barcode doesn't match or whatever it is. In the early days, there were no barcodes. And so in the equivalent, it's like you needed it to be a doctor because they would see the package being delivered and be like, those are the wrong needles. How do they know that? Because they actually are the ones that like actually like
Yeah.
understood the full sequence there. So we've got a full shift from our entire leadership team. This is crazy to think about. It was 2 years, maybe even only like a year and a half ago. Our entire leadership team did not know high level.
Wow.
Like they came in with leadership experience, management experience, but did not know high level. Today, the entire leadership team has grown up in the company. And the change in that experience is one I'm super proud about. But like you're like literally every person in management and leadership has run like live chat. And like the most basic fundamental, like they've been in the trenches solving like real problems and actually understanding the tool deeply, which just changes
Mm.
so much. And so now, like, I understand in some systems, some companies, some industries, like management, leadership, those are real skills you need to acquire for this season and this era. We've decided that, and honestly, the KPIs, Net Promoter Score, CSAT, all the things have shown that this was the right move to make. But it's difficult. It's difficult to give yourself permission to like make hard decisions that force other folks to kind of like elevate the bar around them. I give you this. This has been a personal one. I haven't actually fully documented this whole process because I identified there were other areas in my life where I was optimizing to my kids. You probably feel this too.
Mm.
And I don't think anybody should feel bad. There's consequences. There always is, right? Like this, I look at like entrepreneurs like Alex Ramosi, and he optimizes to the business, to the game, right? And so sometimes it's like fun to watch. It's like watching an athlete, like, it's like they've got they've abandoned. Now he's got a unique situation where his spouse, they're in it together, but like no kids, no pets, no property, real estate. They're just like, they got singular focus. They're optimizing their lives for how can I play this game as hard as possible. Like respect, go and do it. I am not that kind of person. Like I am very much so optimized to like being present for my wife and being present for my kids. And so when you're optimizing to be a parent, are there going to be areas that are weaker? And this is one of those things. It's like, oh my gosh, I brought in leaders. Then there was probably a piece of it where I was a little bit slower. I was a little bit slower to act because I was like, I need to give people space to grow. So like there were clear feedback loops of like, this is not going great. And I was like, give space, trust, and I'm like, and also if I remember the metaphor, like great coaches, do you play football or anything like that? Like soccer?
I would like to, I just don't have time for it.
Okay. Okay. No time here. Well, still, any sport. Imagine if the coach, if like the athlete's having a hard time and the coach is like just give me the ball. I'm gonna play it. You're
Oh
like,
yeah,
that's a weird coach. Like that's not a
that's
coach. Like that's you
that's
know what I mean?
terrible.
Like, it seems so absurd. But we do that in our businesses all the time. That's the temptation, right? You're like your teammates, you're like, you're supposed to ultimately, if you're gonna move into like an owner, you want to be a coach and develop the team that grows the business. And so I was trying to do that, trying to really just be a coach and give the feedback loop. But if you look at great teams, what do? If they've got a weak player, like you coach them to a point, and you cut them for the
Mhm.
sake of the team. Like you just need to be able to cut them. And there were lots of areas I realized that I did not have a high standard for myself. I had a high standard for parenthood. I had a high standard for the kind of husband I was going to be, but I kind of almost decided there were certain areas that I just like couldn't be elite. And so one for me was like fitness. My entire life, I mean, when I was growing up, I was like the chubbier kid. And if you see me in person, maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but like, I was not like a huge person, but I was not like, no one would say there's someone who's like elite in their fitness or whatever. I just never prioritized it. It just like wasn't a thing. And it wasn't until this year where I think two things happened. One, I was internalizing the stress of missed expectations. It is a weird thing. It's a weird feeling to feel like day to day, you're fine. Literally, families fed. We, in many ways, live a magical life. But when you have that many customers and it feels like they're saying, and it's
Like,
not
do
the
you
majority.
feel the weight on your shoulders? Is that
You
what you're
feel
trying
the
to
weight of
say?
shoulders. Well, so just imagine, I'll give you concept. So like for that many folks, it would not be uncommon. So like in December, I think I tracked it, but I had like 150 people reach out who were fundamentally dissatisfied with something we do. Now, if you run the odds on like the stats on it, let's say that's 5%. You're like, so 95% satisfied, 5% grossly dissatisfied.
Mm.
Like in aggregate, you're like, oh, that's not bad numbers. Like that's very reasonable. Now, but imagine that averages out to 3 times a day. Someone tells you how much you suck. 3 times a day, someone comes out to say, Matt, you suck. You made my life horrible. And not in those terms, but that's what it felt like, right? Even if whatever it is. I'm I've been pretty good at kind of if that makes sense, or like I can shut off and kind of walk away. Or I don't manifest stress externally. But what I realized, I didn't know this, but I started internalizing the stress. And so my body had like just crazy response. I developed an allergy to elastic, which is on like so much stuff, like underwear and like all these other things. And I would get like full body hives. And so I started having all these weird issues. So then I go and I do like a blood work and they're like, your body's messed up. So like your stress, all the sort of response was like my body just saying like, you are unhealthy. And there were other negative KPIs. Like I was the heaviest I'd ever been. Like I was not prioritizing physical health at all. Like, and I was probably like, overcoming the negative feelings with like, just eating habit, whatever it was. I was just like
When we are
finding
at stress, we do stupid shit. Yeah.
you do stupid stuff. And so, but honestly, like the range of my entire life, like I said, never heavily prioritized fitness. Probably always stayed in just my body type was like I could be like technically from like a BMI because I'm not a tall person. It was like I was obese and pre-diabetic, but no one would look at me and be like, he looks obese and pre-diabetic. You're like, oh, it's under the shirt.
Mhm.
And yeah, so for the first time in my life, I was like, actually, there was another combining factor there. My parents came to visit our kids, and they have similarly deprioritized their health. and I saw how they're interacting as grandparents, and it's been a weirdly motivating thing for me. Is I just want to do the opposite of whatever my parents do. Like I mentioned earlier, like there's all sorts of relationship dynamic there and
Yeah, I can
baggage.
sense it's a strong motivation for you.
Well, and so like so it's incredible the gift that it is. Sometimes I have good examples and bad examples. Both can
Yeah.
be like gifts. And man, that was a gift. And I was having all these things happen. I saw this experience and I was like, I do not want to be that kind of grandparent. Like I will do everything in my power. And like I flipped a switch. And so it's crazy. I was on, do you know JC?
JC Hive?
JC Height?
Yep. Hive, yep.
Yeah. I was on a podcast with him right around this switch. And I told him, I was like, so this is like you get to document in the moment as it's happening. But I was like, telling a similar piece here. And I was like, I'm committed to get so weird and seem so vain, but it really manifests as so many other things. But I was like a 6-pack this year. I've never in my life been anywhere close to that. But like today I have a 6-pack. Like I have just been disciplined long enough that I am the lightest and strongest I've ever been in my entire life. Like not you could go high school, like nothing has ever been the level that I'm at today. And really what it's done in this process of like the discipline is just giving myself permission to like raise the bar for myself. Like you really have to, if you're going to like lead the business, raise your bar for yourself and then elevate the people around you. And so it's been, yeah, even in 6 months, it'll be 6 months, April 10th. I took my first like progress photo. I was like, here we go, let's start. So yeah, I guess when people are listening, it's been 6 months and a lot of stuff has happened. So I'll segue us into the stuff people actually care about. Do we want to talk about selling the businesses?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I wanna make sure that you're good on time as well. We get into
We're
some good stuff.
we're
So
fine. Yeah, we're good.
just
We're
before we
good.
get into that, I did want to say this. Like, I've seen your surfboard in that room in previous videos. I think you had it there for a while. Have I seen
Yeah.
it there last? Have you had it there last year? Like one thing I always like when I see you on camera, you got the like really good like the backdrop and the surfboard always makes me like there's something to it. It's like it brings memories of when I used to live in Bondi Beach in Sydney and like the healthy lifestyle. Like I don't know if you've ever been to Sydney in Australia and people run, people are fit, like people work out on the beaches. And it's like whenever I saw like you on one of those videos, it just made me like remember like, oh shit, I gotta do more of like active lifestyle again.
Positive. Well, yeah, funny things about it. So I've had a walking treadmill on my desk. I've had a standing desk since 2021 because I hurt my back. Like this is just like getting into your 30s and you do dumb stuff like that. But I wasn't
Mm.
like active. But that was kind of like how I kept it at bay. And for KPIs, if people that care about it, well, I don't even know how to translate it into kilos, but in pounds, I'm 5'8" and I was 180 pounds. So not fit, not as you know not as heavy as you possibly. Sky's the limit in terms of how heavy you can get there. But I would kind of like mitigate by just walking. Man, the difference in utilization, we're talking like, hey, let me walk to try and get 5,000 steps a day to like, then I went to like 15, 20, 30,000 steps a day. Now my team, everyone's getting like walking treadmills. They're all doing it because they just see me like I just live in this space of walking. That's been one of the biggest like shifts there is I just walk a ton
I
and
think I've
it
seen
makes
you
all
in
the
one of
difference.
those one of your was it in one of your September like the birthday sequence that you had one of the videos and you
Possible.
were like walking. I wasn't sure
Yeah.
like is he really walking it like because it looked like you're like in front of like a standing desk, but you had
Yeah.
so treadmill
So
and
I
that's like the ultimate. That's pretty
Well,
good.
that's literally and this is like, habit stacking here. Usually so I did a couple podcasts where I was walking because I was like, this is what I do every day, so I'm just gonna keep on walking. And the short form cutouts from it just looked hilarious. I'm gonna walk. So this is what it takes in the change to walk. I will stop walking in a couple seconds, but this is usually what it looks like with me on a meeting, doing a call, and usually it's like if I'm talking, I'm walking. And that little shift in habits, yeah, it makes like the steps easier to get.
So
I'll turn
here is something that you may not know, but when you walk, have you heard of EMDR therapy?
electromagnetic.
No, so
Yeah.
psychologists use it. It stands for eye movement
Oh yeah.
directional desensitization and reprocessing therapy. So they give you a light bar and then you're looking left, right, and it sort of helps
Hmm.
recalibrate left and right hemisphere. So it's
Hmm.
the logic is basically left, right hemisphere recalibration. Well, guess what? When you walk, it's bilateral movement.
Interesting. Yeah.
So when we walk, I mean, when you walk, you remember, right? When you last time you walk and you're not listening to anything, you just walk outside for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
a lot of great ideas come up,
Yeah.
right? So in a way, it's a form of like stress reducing, therapy inducing, and clever ideas come out of it as well. So
Love
just
it.
wanted just little.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of walking. So Vit and Matt giving the full endorsement on walking, folks. So if you need one hack to just level up your business and your life, get some more steps in.
Let's segue to
Um,
business, man. This has
yeah,
been, I mean, I appreciate you sharing the personal stuff. That's always, I mean, it's interesting to me, and I think it's a point of relevance for a lot of people who are going through their journey of business, especially people who get kids. I mean, you've shared a lot of relevancy here, so thank you for that. I've got some rapid fire questions about high level thought,
please,
just to speed up the pace a little bit here.
let's do it.
What about high level originally grabbed your attention? Was it like something specific or a problem you were trying to solve?
It was, I mean, back in the early days, I just needed two-way text messaging and the ability to white label it so to rebrand it ourselves. So we came in, that's what we were trying to do. That's a problem we're trying to solve. Now, my goodness, the thing that stands out the most to me is their commitment to product, their commitment to product. There's, it is incredible how they've built an organization so single-mindedly focused on building the most incredible product that exists. And so that's rare, just very difficult to come across. I think in the next couple of years, we're going to see them go toe to toe with like your big. I mean, they now
HubSpot,
are funded and back.
Salesforce,
Yes,
maybe
yeah.
even.
You'll see them beat them in UI. Beat, like they will just go every piece of it, and I have no doubt they will surpass those companies because they are just relentless. And what they haven't done, here's an example: contrast of team, HubSpot, Salesforce, all of them have a huge division of sales development reps. Like that's a whole division of the company. HighLevel does not have that at all. They have a very interesting, cool model in the sense of one, they rely a lot on affiliates. Secondly, their model is actually where I think we're going to see them do more of this blade revenue or expansion revenue, where they are getting agencies are we're kind of the sales vehicle a little bit, right? So
Mhm.
like if I have 1,000 clients in there and they all spend $100 a month on phone or AI, add-ons and stuff like that, like HighLevel's taking a chunk of that. So they don't have to go out there and try and get the businesses. The agencies are actually getting the businesses, or affiliates are getting agencies, or even, I won't be surprised in the
It's
long run if it shifts to more direct businesses. But so because of that, they get to focus wholeheartedly on product, and they just blow almost every other team out of the water.
I mean, it's the model itself. Like, I'm a big fan of focusing on like what I enjoy doing, like building snapshots, building systems, focusing on success for my clients. And I can do that, but like whenever I have to like shift and do some webinars or some marketing campaign, or like I can do that. And but it's like that's not where I'm really passionate about. Like, and so what's like genius about like how high level does it, right? Is that they don't have to worry about, they can be full in development mode. That's why they've got 700 developers. When you compare it to HubSpot or Salesforce, right? They have to be going all in on sales and marketing to be competitive. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that's as a strategy for any business, that's very powerful. Now, what new high level feature or digital marketing tool are you like most excited about right now, and why?
High level feature, I'd say WordPress. It's an interesting space and market there. It's a big opportunity, powers 60% of the internet. There's some interesting movers there. That's our background, is I like very much so deeply understand the WordPress world. It's interesting though, but like I think over the next 2 years, I think high level will become a top WordPress ecosystem. And that's interesting. Maybe people wouldn't into I
Well,
fully that's what I'm
especially like recently with the what
with
was that?
WP Engine.
Yep.
Yeah, and the drama there. Yeah, absolutely. So I think and so you could expand this to say websites. I do think high level will continue to edify and build up their own website builder. And so I think what you're gonna see them attack is Webflow and WordPress. So I think if high level goes toe to toe with Webflow in terms of like a build experience, site design experience, there you're gonna be like, oh man, it's incredible because Webflows, they've got their own benefits of, this is usually the tension of like open source versus like closed source is, it's more or less flexibility, but they'll capture both sides of it. With WordPress, they've got the ultimate flexible solution for any sort of web project. And then with like their own, if they elevate it to kind of like a Webflow tier, I think that they'll just dominate from websites. So that's I guess you could expand it to websites, but I do think we've worked closely with them on the WordPress front for like, gosh, it's almost been 2 years. and they've gotten to the point where I'm like, man, this is for managed WordPress, it's enterprise level. And yeah, so I'm excited about that.
It is interesting. And now with the release of domain reselling, you've got the whole enchilada. You've got the full suite of being able to, yeah, it's pretty impressive. Mate, we've got this segment on the podcast called The Beef. Have you heard of it?
No.
So it's basically, we love HighLevel, but, there's also, we experience different bugs or things that maybe frustrate us. And up until now, like the way you get it out, you can submit your idea on the ideas board, and then HighLevel will send out an email once a week to let everybody know, hey, here are the new suggestions. But I don't know if that many people read it. It's a bit dry. It's just text.
Yeah.
And if you really
now
want to,
we got the beef.
Right, now we get the beef. So
I'll give you my beef.
What's your beef?
They need to change the naming convention for custom values, custom fields. They just need to rename it to account values, contact values. Right now, that naming convention is fundamentally confusing. I understand you can't call it sub account values. That's how we think of it as an agency. But I think it should be called account values, contact values, and then you just put like wherever the thing is and just call them all values, as opposed to having to balance between custom fields, custom values that refer to like the things that are defined variables for an entire sub account. Because then in like the automation builder, still they call them custom values, but those are like the other side of a custom field. You have a custom field, the input goes in there, it turns into a custom value, but really it's a custom field. And the custom, that whole naming convention needs to be changed to call them all values, but just define clearly what they are beforehand. This is an account value. This is a contact value. This is an opportunity value.
That last set, I was up until this point, I was like, what do you mean? But that
You
last
weren't
set
tracking?
I'm tracking.
Go into a sub account and then go to settings, and you will see a little section called custom values.
Oh, no, I know what that is. Yeah, I use it a lot. I even bake in like my trigger links of custom values and all that. I leverage a lot of it. I'm a snapshot builder, so it's my jam.
Yeah, I just think the naming convention is fundamentally poor.
So it's just the naming convention, just the aesthetic of it?
Well, it's the function. People get confused all the time. Like, I'm telling you, on the support side of it, I'm telling you, the biggest piece of confusion that we see is just like words of power. They have significance. And so I'll give you an old one that I expressed my beef about and they made the change to, but they used to call them, they still do it with the API. They call them locations as opposed to sub accounts. And then for a season, it was sub accounts and locations. And you're like, just call it sub accounts. Like that's what they are. You've got your account and then you've got sub accounts, and they've made that change. Now it's like when you search almost everywhere through there, it's like, these are sub accounts. You're not having to also understand that like location. So this is sort of insular language. It's the nature of how they develop, which isn't bad, but they've had like sort of fragmented teams. They own different parts and pieces there. And so you get inconsistent language, or in this case, like confusing language. I think just define values based on like they are account values, and that will be, for agency.
Because the word custom, the custom fields, custom values both have the word custom in front of them. So I can understand how, if you need to HighLevel, like that would confuse the heck out of you. So
and they use custom values inside of automations to refer to custom fields.
Yeah, in the lookup, you can actually look up everything. But yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, so that's confusing. But but with that, if they did do anything with what's inside the curly brackets, if they changed it, they would have to do it really carefully, because at this point, so many of us rely on.
Sure. Well, that's interesting too about the curly brackets and all that sort of stuff there, because on custom values, they are inherently fragile. They should not do this, but they let you change. And actually, I guess this counts as a beef there. There's an API weakness where programmatically they will let you break. This is what happens. If you update a custom value name, it will update the squiggly brackets.
No.
And you do it via the API.
Oh.
I'm saying programmatically. So
right.
Yes. And so what this, and even if you're trying to do an update, so this is an interesting beef. This is a deep beef right now. If you go to HighLevel's API right now and you want to write a value to the custom value, which is like you're loading in a snapshot, let's say you want to preload values in there.
Yeah.
They have you match, like, how do you find out what the value is? It's via the name of the value, not the placeholder. And so because you can have those things be different. You can have the name be, let's say color, and you can have the placeholder be brand color. But when you push an update to the name. It rewrites the placeholder to match whatever that simple convention is there. And so, yeah, interesting. My beef is going to be deep, little things like this, which I've expressed at length, and it probably just needs more people to bubble up. I don't know what the limitations are there, but like interestingly, like that process, you're like, you should not be able to break those squiggly bracket placeholders just because you loaded in a value in
Yeah.
there.
And that
But that is
explains why. Yeah. So I use a GHL plugins, or one of the other
yeah,
companies, and they have got like a form for quick updates on custom values. You got something similar as well, right? Now this explains why I've had issues where there's one that whenever you spin up a new sub account, it'll automatically load in custom values with
yeah,
presets,
yeah.
and then I've loaded my snapshot into there, and then I've
And they
started to
weren't working
notice.
together.
Well, no, I started to notice a custom value name showing
Oh,
twice, but the placeholder was different.
yeah.
But the one that was original, that was meant to be coming with a snapshot, I couldn't update. It was blank,
Yep.
and I couldn't update it. And when you click hit edit, it would say, no, that already exists. You can't update it. So it's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh,
You
so it also creates a relationship between them.
you found this exact problem.
Yeah.
Yes, that's another symptom of the exact same problem. So, yeah, you wanna pick my beef, it's API related, and then naming convention around custom values, custom field. That's an awesome segment you're doing here. I love this.
So have you submitted it on the ideas board? I'll just get you to then if you did, because what we do, we guys,
Well
if you understand what we're talking about, and if you believe that this is significant, you should. If you're interested in, if scalability is important to you, then check out the show notes. Go to podcast.highlevelexperience.com. Check out this episode and show notes. There'll be a link to go
to
to the beefs
to
and
the idea board, and
give it give
we
it an
can all
upvote.
vote on it together.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's awesome.
But by the way, this podcast is a community based, right? I just not just interviewing you. I also give everybody that's listening, guys, this is a message to you. If you head over to highlevelexperience.com, you actually have two ways how you can contribute to the episodes. One, you can submit your beef. The rule is you have to have first uploaded your idea on the ideas board. So you got a link that you share. You have to make a video of yourself explaining the beef so that we can slice you as an audio. Second way you can contribute is and this is another section, but I think we're gonna skip it. It's called 3 under 3. So it's 3 under 3, where short 60 seconds, 3 impactful stories of 3 agencies sharing something positive they've done for their clients. So if you guys want to like have a shout out for your agency, you just submit that, and then we'll feature it in the episode as well. Matt, I'm
Awesome.
appreciative of your time. So I think we're gonna wrap it up. But I did have one last question. We'll leave the last question. But I'm just really interested. How did you land Tony Robbins?
Yeah, the secret there is just be good. You just got to be good for long enough. There and like I said, hopefully if people listen for the whole show, I fully recognize in the journey. Think of like your, I don't know, high school girlfriend or significant other or whatever it is. Like they'd be like, "Oh, you were like not the best person." You're like, well, "Sure I wasn't. I was like in development there, right?" So like, and I guess I say that cuz I know people have seen a worse version of myself, which I'm always trying, but like I get it. There's an unfair advantage just coming up every day and be like, I just want to be 1% better. And so maybe if you're listening, you're like, that's surprising. And I'm telling you, if it met like in business, in life, in fitness, a lot can change with even just like 6 months of focused discipline. I do want to, because we teased it at the beginning. So I realize we're running out of time. Here's my give. If you go to highlevelexperience.com/HL Pro Tools, we hooked Vit up with awesome ways. So there's a couple of things. Like our lowest no-brainer possible thing, we did something crazy this year. We lowered our prices. So our entry level tier used to be $197 a month. We cut that down to $97 a month. This gets you all of our tools, all of our training, all of our community. And you'd be like, Matt, why'd you do that? And once again, I feel the weight of continuously being better, but like maybe having some folks that didn't have the best experience there is the most insane value that possibly I could imagine. If you sign up, I'll get you a full teardown that I did on our process. We've gone through this twice now, but one of them was just a white label brand, a white label SaaS agency. We sold to private equity. It was a 7-figure deal. And if you want like my tips and tricks and hot takes, it was 6 months of due diligence. Like it's a long, arduous process of selling a business. But here's my encouragement is, I think some people fundamentally don't believe that like you can build something meaningful. That is life-changing money. Like that just is. And even if I'm in a position where like I don't have to, that's like, I mean, buy more real estate or like pay off big chunks of, we've been building our like dream compound. We have this property with like 2 houses on it and, fruit trees, and you got to believe that helps. And so if you're in that journey, you want to go through it and see the same sort of thing. And the crazy thing is I was not an operator at all in this whatsoever. And so a lot of this is like, man, it is possible to build something significant that other people want to buy that will give you a crazy chunk of life-changing money where you don't even have to do the day-to-day. Like you can actually build the machine that like delivers the value there. And so if you sign up through Vit's link there, highlevelexperience.com/HL Pro Tools, I don't care if you get the $97 plan. All we have is continuity. So like that's as low as I can go. But so if you grab that, I will make sure we'll run like an automation there. So you guys get the full teardown on that. That's typically a different paid thing that we give for like our highest tier. And just because we tease it out and didn't get to go into that, I'll give you that as a free bonus for going through Vit's link.
Man, thank you so much. Guys, full disclosure, we did not organize this deal before. So Matt, the fact that you're sprinkling it with this extra, I really appreciate that. So thank you so much for that. And by the way, guys, if you go on that page and if you scroll down a little bit more, you will also, I'm going to sweeten the deal even more. So you'll get to get my free SaaS rebilling calculator. It's, a Google spreadsheet. We talk about Google today. Google spreadsheets, so undervalued. They're so good. Anyway, so it's a Google spreadsheet. It's got a bunch of tabs and lots of formulas. Ultimately, if you're selling SaaS to other countries than just USA, and you want to figure out what are the inclusions, if you give somebody $10 a month, and if they ask, well, what does that give me? If you want to have a simple phrase to say, $10 in this country will give you about this many SMS, this many emails, this many whatever. Now I have a tool that does that for you. All you got to do is just set up your, like, what are your markups for all the different things, like 1.1, 1.2, whatever. It spits it all out. One thing with that, you just have to copy it, create your own version, and make sure that, because you got to rely on the data. So, it's coming from certain things coming from Twilio. You make sure that you're working with the right data. But anyway, it's available. There's a video how you set it up, and now you can have it. So head over to highlevelexperience.com/HL Pro Tools to learn about all this stuff that we just talked about. Matt, with that, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate jumping on. I was so much looking forward to this episode, and you've delivered. We went to areas that I didn't thought would go, but that's good conversations lead to where you got to give it freedom to go wherever it needs to go to, right? And I think, anyway, it was cool. So thanks so much, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And guys, thank you so much for listening to today's episode as well on the High Level Experience. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with your fellow agency mates and other high levelers that you think would also benefit from listening. For show notes, links, and extra tips to help you grow your agency or your SaaS with high level, please go to highlevelexperience.com. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day, everybody.